Hello, and welcome back to another episode of That Spiritual Girl Next Door. Before we dive in with today's guest, I just want to say something up front. You don't need a device, a retreat, or anything outside of you to tap into higher realms or to learn more about who you truly are. You have everything you need inside of you. But that said, I also believe that new and different experiences, whether it's technology or travel or sitting in a sound bath, can serve as breadcrumbs on the path to self discovery. They shake things up, they show you a new perspective, and sometimes that's what it takes to help us remember what's already within. So, while today's conversation is about a fascinating tool that can create these sober psychedelic states, please know this. You will never hear me say, buy this or you're missing out on enlightenment. That's just not my style. If I share something down the line, like a merch or tool I love, it's just an invitation to play along, never a requirement. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just here to explore what it means to be human and spiritual and awake and to remind you that you are already whole and complete. So, if you stick around until the end of this episode, I will share some of my favorite, totally free, accessible ways you can create a similar expanded state in the comfort of your own home, no gadgets required. That said, what we're going to talk about today is super fascinating, and the science behind it is something you totally want to explore. But one more housekeeping item before we jump into today's conversation. What is this bandage on my nose, you ask, YouTube subscribers? Sorry, podcast listeners. Luckily, I am sparing you the beauty that is my nose today. But today I had a Mohs procedure done on my nose to remove a squamous cell that they found. So this is your PSA to get any suspicious skin stuff that you've been putting off just checked out. And I wanted to show up today without B-roll in front of my face just because it's also a little teaser for an upcoming episode I have planned on Courtney Stevenson's podcast. She was on my podcast not too long ago, and she does some really cool Neville Goddard style work. But we're going to talk about how the body can keep the score in your life and how things will show up that you've been suppressing and the messages that it gives you and how you need to listen. So just showing up today with my face to give you a little teaser of what's to come. But for today's episode, I am joined by Raffaele Gianfrancesco from roXiva, and he told me I could call him Raff, so we're going to go with that. But roXiva is a company that's creating technology that combines light, sound, and vibration to help people access expanded states of consciousness. We talk about how these sober psychedelic experiences work, why people are so drawn to them, and what they can teach you about the bigger picture of who you really are. And remember, if you stick around until the end, I will share some of my favorite, totally free ways to explore similar states right at home. So that said, on to the show. Sometimes I find that my best conversations are had just in the beginning, shooting the shit,
Mm,
and I don't want to miss it.
no, I got you.
But how are you doing? You got
I'm
anything
well.
new going on?
Well, I just got back from another show. We were exhibiting at the Float Conference, which is the industry trade show for float spas. And they're big into the whole kind of sensory deprivation thing. We have found a good market with that because there are people that don't have like all the time. When you go float, you have to go there, take off your clothes, take a shower, get in the tank, get out of the tank, take a shower, put your clothes back on. So it's a really long process. And so there are people that want basically altered and expanded states of consciousness that maybe don't have 2 hours.
Right.
And so this provides an alternative vehicle. We really do provide all the same benefits as floating: mental clarity, removal of the nagging voice in your head, connection to higher self. So it really does fit nicely, but it's really ironic that it's a completely different way we get people there. Like, we overstimulate you to shut off the voice in your head. So
That is very cool. And I think that's probably part of your career journey right now is like, where's the niche? Where's because it fits so in so many places.
yeah.
And I live in Savannah, Georgia. And when we talked at the conference, I don't think there's anyone around here that has your equipment.
No, what I find is sometimes the Bible Belt states we have a little more difficulty with consciousness as a term. People get afraid that they're going to lose their personal connection to whatever deity they love.
And often it's
Because
the ego.
yeah, and in many cases, the ego is what's keeping them attached to at least a belief system that is limiting. It doesn't mean that you can't have a God connection or a personal experience of divinity. It just means that it may change for you when you start exploring your consciousness. And some people just don't, they're not ready for that. So,
Right. No, and that makes sense. You know what's interesting around here lately? Sound baths have become so popular. Like
mm,
there's people popping up everywhere that are practitioners and
hmm
holding the space for it. And I think that might be a good on ramp for these types of things.
it's a gateway drug.
You're like, oh, sound could be healing. Oh, I don't want to just sit and meditate with my own thoughts and I can listen
Right.
to something else outside of me. And it's a little bit of a security blanket, you
Right.
know?
Well, what a lot of people don't realize is when they go to church and they sing their hymns, they're doing breath work. They don't realize that most of those hymns are designed to expel a lot more air that you take in. And if you notice when you're singing, you just like when you're talking a lot, talking a lot, talking a lot, and then you take a breath and then you talk more. And that's why talking can be so relaxing for people because it's just naturally doing a longer exhale and shorter inhales because when people get nervous, they tend to hyperventilate, and so, I mean,
Yes. That
yeah.
is fascinating to think about. And there's a whole nother rabbit hole you can go down with how churches are designed
hmm
with sound healing in mind and
hmm
the shapes and the
Yeah.
echoes and the pipes and
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
they're all about sacred geometry.
right. So that's a
Mhm.
whole nother that's so cool. Well, and so I was just on a walk listening to a podcast you did. And one of your really good points was how people often when they're trying to hang on and not surrender to an
Mhm.
outside experience that you might provide, even in just meditation, they
Mhm.
don't breathe. They
Mhm.
kind of, you tell them exhale quickly and
Right.
it causes them. So what did you say? You could die from just trying to inhale too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause you're not you
If you
gotta don't
never
forget the exhale.
exhale, you die.
So, okay, well, I wanna do a quick little introduction about who you are and what you do, and I love
Okay.
how we just jumped right in because
Uh,
that's what I'm all about. But Raff is, a super cool dude that I got to meet at the Psy Games, which,
mhm.
I hope my listeners are not tired of hearing me talk about. And you were a busy dude at the conference. It took me a second to get in and have the
Mhm.
experience at your booth with roXiva. So, can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about what roXiva is and how you got involved in this sort of science? Because I also want to talk about your brain entrainment background. So, I'm
Yeah,
going to throw
yeah,
it back
and
to
I'm
you.
gonna go way back
Okay.
because it's been thousands of years that humans have known that light can influence our consciousness. I mean, we have found in the history and the archaeology devices like big wooden wheels that have holes punched in them that we can imagine were used for people to sit behind and spin with the sun on the other side to create these flickering light experiences. And, if you think about lying under a tree and the sun's shining through the leaves of the tree, what happens? You just get this kind of dreamy state going on. And that is entrainment. That is what's known as the hypnagogic state. And it is the state where most amazing revelations occur and where genius lives, because in that state, we have access to the superconsciousness, not just what we know as an individual, but all knowledge. Some people call it the Akashic record, some people call it the astral plane. I mean, there's a lot of names for it, but it's been known throughout the history of the world that there were brilliant people that figured out they got their best ideas just as they were falling asleep. So, wise men like Franklin and Einstein and others, they would devise ways of starting to fall asleep and then pulling themselves out of it so that they could write down whatever occurred to them in that liminal space, in that limited moment. And some of them, basically, they had a metal plate on the floor and they held like a bell or metal balls in their hand, and they would hold them and hold them and hold them until they were starting to fall asleep. And when they would hit that moment of falling asleep, their grip would relax and the balls would fall and make this loud noise, and they'd be jarred
Mm,
awake, and they would just write down immediately what came to them. Like they would pose a question prior, and then they would get their answer.
that's cool. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And talking about this looking up at the light through the leaves, I mean, I
Mm,
feel like you can look at a campfire, you can stare
hmm
up at the stars. That to me,
Fire
watching a
was the
campfire.
first form of hypnosis,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, yeah. I mean, even looking at the stars too in the sun. I mean, no, I shouldn't say fire was the first. It was the sun through the leaves,
Mm.
because trees and leaves existed way before fire. So,
Oh, right. Well,
yeah,
either all of those are
yeah,
relatable though. I mean, and
yeah,
if
yeah. And
when was the
that's
last
called.
time people like if you're listening to this right now, when was the last time you did any of those things?
Mm.
And guess what? They're free.
Yeah, and
So
we've
it would
become so disconnected from nature and our
mhm.
inner souls and our inner selves that, this is why this experience is so valuable and so sought after and searched for, because we can induce using our device, which has 16 individual light sources on it. It's a full white light spectrum, so there's no colors being introduced into the system. You lie under it with your eyes closed, and we flicker complex patterns in different harmonics to engage the central nervous system, put you into rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic, and open you to possibility, basically awe and wonder. And people report feelings of awe, joy, bliss, serenity, wonder, connection to source, intuition opening up, just a variety of benefits. But the device itself is capable of generating any brainwave state that the brain is capable of, including some we didn't know it was capable of.
Oh.
And so we can do everything from deep rest, producing delta waves, which puts us in a state where we're able to produce human growth hormone, which is very hard to do the older you get. Our human growth hormone production drops off precipitously as we age. And the only time people above the age of 45 can really have a chance of producing human growth hormone is in the delta sleep first stage of the night. So basically, when you lie down to bed, that first hour and a half sleep goes in hour and a half stages where you cycle through light sleep, deeper sleep, REM sleep, and then absolutely deep sleep. And then you come out of that, you start another cycle. Okay. So when you go into delta, you've got the chance of producing human growth hormone. But sadly, in our over caffeinated, over exposed, overstimulated society, by the time our head hits the pillow, we're so jacked up. If we can even fall asleep, we're lucky to reach those deeper sleep states.
Mm,
And that's why an entire industry has now sprung up around improving sleep, because people are sleeping but not resting. So we can induce those delta waves to produce that deep rest and give the body the chance to start producing human growth hormone again.
wow. I mean, that's super compelling. And
Hmm.
that all right, when you're talking about the device itself, it's got
Hmm.
the lights that you
Hmm.
described. And then
Hmm.
there's lots of other ways you could have a full sensory experience,
Hmm.
or you can do a zero gravity chair, or tell
Hmm.
me what the setup, like set the stage
Yeah.
on what the setup looks
Yeah.
like.
So what we've done now is we've created a triadic entrainment environment. So we're working, yeah, triadic. Isn't that a lovely word?
I have a marketing background, so I
Yeah.
appreciate this.
Yeah. 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 So, triadic entrainment environment, TEE. We're going to tee off your, no, never mind. Sorry.
We're gonna have some synergistic, yeah.
Yes, yes. So basically, we're using perfectly synchronized light, sound, and vibration to create an absolutely coherent environment. And coherence is key. And that's why at the Psy Games, mentioning the Psy Games
Yeah.
again, so many people were so blown away by the system, because they're so used to trying to get into these quiet places to find their abilities and explore their abilities, that they get frustrated because meditation doesn't always do it, and trying to do binaural beats doesn't always do it. And so you do all these things and it doesn't always work. But we had almost 100% hit rate. Everybody that got on the device said, holy moly, I went to that place immediately. Like the place I'm always trying to get to, I just
Yeah.
went there, like immediately.
I've personally never done psychedelics because I am a very sensitive person, like to caffeine,
Hmm.
to anything, and the little bit of substance I've dabbled with, well, also I'm a lifelong control freak. That's like
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
lesson I've been learning.
Hmm.
So when I try to surrender and give up control, I have nausea. Like in these sorts of journeys, I mean, it's really it's difficult for me. And on one hand, it's why I need to try harder and not
Hmm.
try harder. That's like the paradox. But to have a opportunity to surrender and learn
Hmm.
that when you give up control, oh wait, you don't die.
Hmm.
And but then getting in a safe state for that to happen is sort of the trick, right?
Hmm.
So when we'll talk about what happens once you're in this triadic situation, this state. But I had that moment where I'm under the light and then the table's vibrating and then you have the headphones on
Hmm.
and is it binaural beats or it's a
No, it's
frequency?
way more advanced.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get
But
to that.
you're I'm squeezing my eyes shut so hard because I'm in that state where I'm like hanging on, like I'm in the
Hmm.
front of the train, you know? And then once you take a minute to breathe, like you instruct, you do a really good job at that. And you
Hmm.
can enter in the experience and realize it is a journey of sorts. And I'm telling this was 5 minutes that
Yeah.
we had this experience. And then I was like, wait, how do I do this again? I mean, and it was a surrender that I haven't been able to get to on my own. And again, talking about sober, no drugs.
Hmm.
Because I mean, if you do psychedelics, you have no choice.
Right.
But this is a way. But for control freaks, that's scary.
Yeah.
This is a great. It was amazing. It blew my mind. And talking about abilities, my friend Andrea, I met the show. She did it. She comes running into the ballroom telling me about her experience. And she says, I could see the ceiling tiles, but my eyes were closed. And we had just watched the mine site
Hmm.
demonstration.
Hmm.
And she's like, I was squeezing them shut, but all I could see were the ceiling tiles above me. And
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
amazing. So
That's because
we're a
we
big
have that
commercial for
third
it, and we're
eye.
going to later talk about how people can actually get this experience. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I didn't mean to interrupt your
No,
explanation,
that was awesome
but
because
when
it
you're talking
doesn't just
about it being blowing everybody's mind, I had to give my
yeah.
little
Yeah.
testimonial.
And it does. It kind of pops open your it decalcifies the pineal gland because it's a vibratory experience, and everybody knows that the pineal gland has those crystals on the outside that have a piezoelectric effect, so that when the crystals pulsate, they make tiny little sparks of light.
Mm,
And it's amazing that you know, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about all of his meditations that allow you to access this state and to get the pineal gland to start producing DMT along with other parts of the body. And that's what we're doing, where we're speeding up that process. You know, Dr. Joe does a great job, but you go to a week retreat and, you come out of it with what you can get out of one session of the roXiva. The goal is to get to that place during that week while you're there, and we can bring people there right away. And yes, you're right. It's a confronting experience because, now let me say this first, okay? Because the session that I was doing had a certain amount of impact, and I would put it at about a 3 out of 10
mm,
as to what's our device is capable of, because I want to give people enough wow that they're interested in, and fascinated by the device, but I don't want to blow them out of the water and,
right.
scare them. Okay. And now when you're talking with so many different people, that level is different for everybody. So one thing that I like to do is I like to kind of have a conversation first and see where people are and meet them where they're at and choose the session that way, because we have the ability to have sessions that will literally put you to sleep, that are
Hmm.
so relaxing. But that's not really an experience you can talk about if you just went to sleep, you know? But a lot of people do get the device because it helps them sleep. It helps
Mm,
them sleep deeper. It helps them relax. It helps them enter a hypnosis trance state very easily. All of those are available on the table. But you mentioned the psychedelics earlier, and what we're creating is a sober delic. It's a psychedelic experience that's sober. And sober delics, I believe, are the future. And that's what we were talking about earlier, singing. breath work, just meditating. Those are all soberdelic experiences. You can alter your state of mind endogenously, without putting anything in, without a substance, just through the natural stimuli. And this is the way that we can access these places. Now, people that have control issues do not want to hear the voice in their head, because usually that voice in their head is a very loud, controlling voice.
Mm.
And that's the one they're running away from by trying to control everything. So it's really interesting how the one thing we're trying to avoid is the thing that we recreate in our own lives. And, that's called transference. And, we just put it out there to everybody else, what we're trying to hide in ourselves. So to do any surrender type practice is very challenging for anybody that's a type A personality, that's a super achiever, that's, completely logical, rational, academic. Like, the smartest people with the highest amount of education were the ones that had the most trouble, because they live in a world of facts. They know everything that's supposed to happen and why. And, that's why Nietzsche, way back when, said that, we're killing God. Why are we killing God? Because we're making everything so logical and rational, and we're taking all the magic, beauty, and music out of being human. And so that's what we're up to. We're reintroducing all that.
One of the biggest questions that I've gotten when I start talking about all of this stuff,
Hmm.
that people who might not be as immersed in this world as we are,
Hmm.
is why. Why do you want to reach these different states? And you hit on it in that what you just said in terms of how disconnected we are and how people seek other outlets in order to disassociate from their lives, whether it might be alcohol or other drugs or being a workaholic. There's
Hmm.
plenty of other ways that people are numbing and disassociating, and they might not realize it until they start to come back to themselves and
Yeah.
they realize that this isn't spiritual bypassing. You are not creating a state that they can just get a break from their life. You're getting them in a state that they can now reconnect with themselves, to reconnect to their actual life.
So yeah, so it's interesting because one of the things that is happening and that has happened is that we have been told that the material world is everything, that science is everything, that it has to be measured, quantified, explored, explained, poked at, prodded at, frozen, heated, anything you can do to make something react to you, and that way we're in control. All right, but the fact of the matter is, the most important things in the world cannot be measured or quantified. Like, how much do you love your family or your child? Can you measure that? Is that, is there a certain value that you can attach to that? What is hope? What is
Mhm.
dreaming? What are those things? And so the best things in life are free. And we just don't do them anymore because we've been sold this bill of goods that materialism and an acquisitory, you know, basically compete with the Joneses lifestyle. But well, so, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to open people's minds, because the idea of meditation and sound baths and psychedelics is to create a sense of coherence and community, so that we can reconnect to ourselves and others around us, because love is everything. Love is the organizing force in the universe. There's love, and then there's fear, or basically there's expansion and entropy in the universe. There's the going out force and the returning force, the life force and the dying force. I mean, everything is that duality that we live in, but that duality is only constructed in 3D. We only live in it because this is the matrix that we happen to be existing in right now. The reason why this is so important is that we are all going to die. That's a fact. Okay. Even though, the AI and blah, blah, and all these scientific advances claim that, humans can be immortal, as far as we know right now, everybody dies eventually. So what we're talking about is that experience of being more than your physical body. And the Monroe Institute talks about this a lot, okay? Whether it's created through a religious aspect or through a spiritual aspect, to realize that we are more than our physical body is key. And, I just read a study today that said that they've now been able to show that literally when you die, there is a light that stops glowing. There's a
Mm.
dissipation of light. And they've even been able to prove that when an egg is inseminated by semen in the womb, there's a spark of light that occurs. They have photographs of that spark of light occurring. So, what if that's what we are? What if we're beings of light inhabiting a meat suit, a physical body, you
Certainly
know?
makes sense.
And so that's what a lot of people can't handle because they're so identified with their career, their beauty, their success, their position, their standing, whatever, that
Mhm.
to lose that is literally death to them.
Oh, yeah, so if that's your identity and then you realize, "Oh, wait, who I am is not that,"
Right.
then that feels like death.
That's an existential crisis.
Right, as opposed to, "Wow, I'm so much more than this." At this point, I'm sure everybody's like, "Sign me up."
Hmm.
Except what are the dangers or what are the is there like a prescribed use? Could you use it too much?
Hmm.
Obviously, if you have epilepsy, it's probably not your jam. I mean,
Right.
what are the sort of
Right. Yeah.
disclaimers?
And, some more science has come out about that too. I mean, there are a certain number of people in the world that have epilepsy, but even people that have epilepsy don't automatically have photo-induced epilepsy.
Mhm.
That's a very specific subset
Right.
of epilepsy. So, we say no to epilepsy in general because it's just safer to do that.
Sure.
But what a lot of people don't realize is that flickering light has been used in the past to treat epilepsy before there were epilepsy drugs. Before there were epilepsy drugs, they used diet and they used flickering light exposure to uptrain resilience, reduce inflammation, and create a state of exposure therapy, basically. Because the one thing that they've been able to find is that human beings have what's known as a flicker fusion threshold, FFR. And the
Okay.
flicker fusion threshold is the speed at which a flickering light will appear to be solid.
Mm,
And people that have the most difficulty with strobing light have a very low flicker fusion threshold.
okay.
Okay. And that's why people that are traumatized, and we're all traumatized in some way, okay? But people that are traumatized, one of the first things that happens is like that they can't look at things. They go into a room and it's too bright.
Mm,
The sun's too bright. They have to wear sunglasses all the time. They get stressed out when they're driving if the headlights are too bright. Because photosensitivity is a real panic button type symptom. And
mhm.
so we ask people that. I ask people that, do you have trouble with bright lights?
I do. I
I
mean, in terms of
I think I
headlights.
asked you that too.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, but it's not like I'm gonna get into a panic over it. I can't see at night very well because of the headlights.
Mhm,
And, you can chalk it up to it's astigmatism,
mhm,
but I'm always been one person that if, it's the evening in the house, I'm turning off all the lights and putting my
right.
lamps on, and, like, good lighting is a big deal. When we've got moved, I've replaced all the lights from daylight bulbs to warm bulbs. I mean,
Yeah.
it's light is a big deal for
I can't
me.
believe people went back to that. Like, I remember, you're young,
I'm
but
very
back
offended by daylight bulbs.
yeah, well, so, you're young, you won't remember this, but there used to be round fluorescent
Oh,
tubes
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that screwed into the
Awful.
socket, and they were this blue, like, department store horrible color, and I still like, I walk my dog every night, I still walk by people's homes and see that color lighting in their homes.
Or in their light outside their
Yeah,
door.
or they're like yeah, and it just it's a very judgmental thing. I probably should be more, accepting, but I just say, "Don't you know? Like, what's wrong with you?"
Well, don't you know how much better your life would be with warm lighting?
Yeah,
Like, and
yes.
then I'll start spouting off, 2,400K, 3,000K. Like
Yeah.
lighting makes a big
Color
difference to
temperature
me
is
to a
everything,
psyche.
and actually the fact that the sun is where it is and our atmosphere is what it is what makes our planet a Goldilocks planet, that we're
Mm,
getting full spectrum light and it's just the right,
Not too bright,
temperature.
not too
Yeah.
hot. Yeah,
And that's
just
why
right.
in the morning and then in the evening, you've got those golden hours where the sun is in just the right spot to take photos. And that's why, when you're filming or if you're having a wedding, we're going to lose the light. We're going to
Oh,
lose the
and
light.
it's the most beautiful time to be outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and so it's interesting you say, "Are you sensitive to light?" So maybe I don't wanna say it's in the bad way. Like, I'm sensitive to it in that it does make a difference in my life, and in
Hmm.
probably everyone's if they took a moment to really, like, think about it. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I went to a restaurant not too long ago, recently renovated, beautiful, like, had the coolest bar with new tile, all the works, and then their lighting was daylight bulb, fluorescent like, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
They screwed the pooch on that one because it could have
Did you
been a
say
really cool
anything?
atmosphere. But yeah, light is a
Did
huge
you
and
say anything to them?
no, well, because okay, this is maybe judgmental, but it's has an older crowd clientele in that
Okay.
city that it's in specifically,
Okay.
and I'm wondering if they complained about, like, reading the menu or, like so
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
balance between, "Hey, have mood lighting," and then those little tap lights on your table are important too to be able to, like,
Yeah.
see what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm very close to needing readers, so I am sensitive to that
Yeah.
need, but
Yeah.
anyway, it can be done in a good
That's a
way.
good point. That's a very good point, though. We do have a safety questionnaire,
Mhm.
and there are some medications that some people take that can make them more photosensitive. So we're aware of that, and we address that. And so we're all about keeping people safe and giving them an amazing
Yeah, and I
experience.
don't wanna make you bring up negative stuff, but I mean, like, what's
No,
what's
but
the
it's
worst that can happen?
absolutely it's so. I mean, nobody's ever died.
Right, well, I mean, so say you're having a panic attack.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can turn it off, and you can get up and open your
Oh, yeah,
eyes.
no, I mean,
You're in
again,
the
I
driver's
mean,
seat.
part of the training, the big part of the training is absolutely on how to select the session for someone
Mhm.
and how to monitor the experience and how to show them that literally we have a built-in off button. If at any point you feel uncomfortable,
Yeah,
just do that,
over
and it
your
stops immediately. Everything stops,
mhm.
you know? And so
But, I mean, it is wild that the fact that you can see so it is a white light flashing, and then
mhm,
all of a sudden, inside your mind's eye which okay, and maybe you know more about this, there are different layers to me of what's going on in when you close your eyes. There is what's happening behind your eyes. There's what's happening when you envision something almost psychically or have an imagination, sort of like in the middle of your brain. And then, often um, thoughts will sometimes feel like they're coming from somewhere. So, like, this to me is more so behind your eyes.
mhm,
But then it also further into the session again, I only did 5 minutes, starts to become more immersive on that middle part of your brain where you are inside of it, so to speak, like
mhm,
more like a dream. But
right,
behind your eyes is where the kaleidoscoping happens and all these colors. And I'm a University of Georgia fan, go dogs. It was very Florida driven for whatever reason. It kept being blue and orange, blue. And I'm like, what is going on? It just made me laugh. But
yeah,
all these different and then it would change to something else, and then
mhm,
it's, there's no controlling it. I can't control it as if I was in a meditation, and then I'm they'd say, "Go down your safe place in at a stream," and then you envision the stream. No, this is happening,
mm.
and I can't control what I'm seeing, but that's kinda what makes it cool because it's giving me maybe what my brain needs or is producing. I'm making that up, but that's how it felt.
No, you're nailing it actually. What happens is the stimulus is designed to confound the sensory organs and because we live in our world as these beings taking in stimulus all day long and processing it and turning it into our perception of reality. Now, it could also be argued that we are broadcasting reality out, that we have a shared illusion, that we all kind of create our own version of reality, and that's what we see.
Mm,
But it's not really, nobody can really know that. you know,
And
and that's
that's with
why
our eyes when they're open, is what
that's our
you're
eyes when they're
yeah, that's
open.
the
Right,
the
right.
illusion,
So
quote,
so
unquote.
by closing the eyes, and it's
Yeah,
been proven, by closing the eyes, you automatically start generating more alpha waves, which are
okay.
the relaxation waves. Okay. So the brain knows when you close the eyes, nobody closes their eyes, in a dangerous situation, if they want to live. You know what I mean? So if your eyes are closed, generally the brain takes that as a cue that some people actually do close their eyes in a scary thing because it makes them feel safe.
Yeah. No,
You know
that's
what I mean?
okay, this is a good point, yeah, so it immediately puts you more in an alpha state.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So basically, once that happens and the music is synchronized and the vibration is happening, which is doing somatic release, you just start getting out of your regular thinking patterns. You just get out of that kind of, way that we're all stuck in the outside world, and
The
we go
grocery
inward.
list, the to-do
Yeah,
list,
right,
the chatter,
right,
right, that's
right.
gone.
So the flickering light actually is messing around with the circadian rhythm section of the brain. Okay. The section that runs day and night cycles. So if you imagine the sun goes up, the sun goes down. That's a day. That's a
Mhm.
cycle. Our brain records that. All right. And that's why they tell you at night, you don't want to have bright lights because it'll mess up your circadian rhythms. And so imagine now you're under a device that's flickering light. The brain is taking that input as the light's on, its day, the light's off, its night, the light's on, its day, and so on and so forth, right? Now imagine it doing that so fast that this circuit's like, what the heck is going on? Day, night, day, night, day, night, day, night, day,
Okay.
night. The circuit just eventually gets overwhelmed and goes offline. And so
Mm,
once you take your time circuit offline, you lose everything that exists in time.
mm.
And everything that exists in time is space, is 3D, is our perception of ourselves. And so that's why when you're fighting it, you're still seeing the light, you're focusing on the lights. The light, the flickering is so strong. Why? Because you're not allowing yourself to suspend your sense of time and reality. And when you finally relax into it, what happens is you do start journeying, you do start lucid dreaming, you do start having a shamanic experience because we've done what the psychedelics do, and that's turn off the thinking brain. And then the subconscious can emerge. And that's why when the subconscious emerges, anything can pop into your head because that's the stuff we're working on under the surface. That's the stuff that makes us exhausted that we don't even know is going on all day, every day, 24/7, 365
Mhm.
for our entire lives. We're just running these patterns that suck energy out of us. And until we become aware of them, we can't do anything about it.
Well, so what is your personal protocol like? How often I mean, do you have one in your bedroom and you do this every night? What is it? If you have access to something
Yeah.
like
So
this?
in the beginning, I had one in my bedroom because it helped me fall asleep. But the more you do it, just like meditation, the more the benefits just accrue and, stay engaged. So I don't have to have one in my bedroom anymore. I have one over my couch.
Mhm.
And so, because we've got so many different types of programs, we've got programs for productivity, we've got programs to lift up your mood, we've got programs to bring you down if you're over anxious, we've got programs to help you become organized, to create better habits, we've got hypnosis and meditation journeys for different chakra clearing, and we have a session called rebirth, which basically is 45 minutes long. It's a personal favorite of Ben Greenfield, who is a kind of a famous biohacker, and basically very few people get up from rebirth that are not crying because
Mm.
it's a 45-minute journey of being in utero and hearing all the things and feeling all the things that a baby might feel in the womb, and then a build up to the eventual birth
Wow.
process. And it is quite stunning. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's, one of the things that has caused a lot of people to have shifts in their thinking are these near death experiences that
Mhm.
everybody's always talking about. And what happens in a near-death experience? Well, many times a large amount of DMT is created because that is kind of the gateway chemical.
Okay.
They've been able to associate that to the crossing over.
Mm.
So, all of the things people see in their near-death experience are probably some of it is a result of the body producing a large amount of DMT.
And
Okay.
same with like psychedelic. We've already talked about that, but like
Right.
ayahuasca, people go to these journeys so that they can gain a different perspective
Hmm.
to then take it back. And so that begs the question of integration. So,
Right.
how do you have these experiences and these journeys with the device, and then what is the protocol to integrate? Like, is that up to the person? I mean, of course, but like, do you have
Yeah,
recommendations?
we've got protocols, integration suggestions that we provide.
Hmm.
There's a tremendous amount of training and support that comes with the device. So, we become kind of your coaches too in this journey. And so, whether you're an individual or using it with clients, we support the product very well. But integration can be as simple as just lying there for 10 minutes after the
Hmm.
session is over and just really realizing what you got from it.
Hmm. And as simple as a journal or,
Or a journal, yeah, a
yeah.
journal, or make a voice recording.
Hmm.
Just do something and then revisit it later, and then use that as maybe the basis for your next session. Because the nice thing is you can do it whenever you want, as much as you want. You can't really overdo it. I mean,
Okay, that was my other question.
yeah,
Is
no,
there
I
an
mean, not
overdo it
really.
that
I
you
mean,
just go
I guess you could become a bliss junkie and just be on it all day long. But eventually,
your
if you
serotonin's just off the
yeah,
charts?
yeah. If you do it too much at too much intensity, over time your eyes will get used to it and
It
you won't see the patterns
it won't
nearly as
work as
much.
much.
But that doesn't matter because we're not so much about the light show as we're about the state that can be created. And
Mhm.
even if you don't get the light show, you still do go into state.
And
So,
then it just becomes now that's just like the trigger for your brain to do
right.
what it knows already how to do.
Yeah.
Have you guys done any training with children?
So children actually have a much lower seizure threshold than
Mm,
adults because their brains are so malleable. Okay. And so we don't recommend usage on children without a doctor's involvement,
right.
or at least permission. There are sessions that are safe enough that can be used for children, but most of them are not.
Yeah, and I looked into brain entrainment for my daughter who was undiagnosed, dyslexia, possibly
Uh-huh.
ADD. I didn't really want to look for a diagnosis or a label. And once we did some testing for school reasons, that they all came. Luckily, there were no diagnosis. But I looked at brain entrainment just in terms of emotional regulation, and I had several doctors that were supportive here, but they said the thing about it is that you have to be super consistent, that once you quit, that you won't really see the results anymore. It's not like a one and done. So it's interesting that this just reminds me of that whole process
Well, the
that
idea is that you want to anchor the state somehow. And
okay.
that gets into neurolinguistic programming because, if you, the doctors aren't 100% right because if you guide a horse to water enough, you may not be able to make it drink, but it's going to remember where the water is.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, my concern was she's still young and figuring things out. I don't want to necessarily train her brain to be any different than who she is.
Right, right, exactly. And so, but what I'm replying to is the thing that, where they said it's not a one and done. It's not
Right.
a one and done, but if you do it repeatedly, the brain does remember how to get to those places because you're constantly exposing the brain. The brain is always learning. So if I bring the brain to a high gamma state and I do it repeatedly. And high gamma, for example, is the state that Tibetan monks are able to enter after,
Mhm.
doing Zen meditation for decades. And we've been able to measure they're generating off the charts 100 hertz frequencies, like just crazy.
Mhm.
Most
Mhm.
people cannot get there. roXiva can bring them there instantly. And so even if you can't train yourself to go there by using roXiva, if you have one, you can go there whenever you want.
Right. Right. Okay, that's pretty cool. And so I hear you on maybe children. That's not something that, but you could do. So that also one of my questions I wanted to ask you about if somebody can't afford to buy a device from you, and there's not anywhere nearby, do you have recommendations on how they can kind of get started with the same idea?
So, There are some consumer devices that, certainly aren't as good, but, there are consumer devices
Does
available.
roXiva have any plans for the future of making it super accessible?
So we're actually working on putting together a rental program, a rent to own type situation,
Okay.
where people can try it and then, pay something and, have it and then return it or credit towards their ownership. But what we're learning is that we are not a product company as much as we are a content company.
Mhm.
So there's the TV screen and then there's what you watch on the TV screen. Okay. And you can watch everything from, was that Honey Boo Boo back in the day, right? To a documentary
Right,
about,
right, right. That
you
is
know,
quite the spectrum.
Leo Tolstoy. You know what I mean? And so, you know, what's that TV worth and what's the content worth? Okay. And so we have the most exciting, engaging, enthralling, immersive experiences ever created. And we have a very powerful, talented, expensive team of people that create them
Yeah,
because there's no other way to do it than to sit there and spend the time and create the experience second by second. So, for example, we don't have a subscription model so that, once you get a Ruxiva, you're in the family forever. So all new content is free forever to all Ruxiva owners.
okay. Well, that's very
Where a
cool.
lot of these companies have like 30, 40 more dollars a month subscription
Right.
fee,
That's
and
all the
that
brain
adds up
entrainment
that
business
adds
model.
up
Mhm.
fast.
Yeah, that's why we
Okay.
one of the reasons we didn't do brain entrainment because it didn't feel accessible, and I think maybe one of the takeaways is go to your practitioners,
Mhm.
people, and tell them about this information and have them make the investment, and then it becomes an
Yeah,
offering
because if
that's
you're willing to be a customer, there are other people that are willing
right.
to be a customer. And so we have our devices in float spas, acupuncture clinics, chiropractors' offices, psychotherapists, addiction recovery clinics, functional medicine
You know what
doctors.
I would love to see?
Who is that?
Is, all the Botox and the facial people, like, "Hey, get your Botox and go inside yourself
Yeah. Yeah.
and learn about who you are." Like,
Yes. But
wouldn't that be a cool combo?
sadly, it's a combo that would be ultimately bad for their business. They'd have to
That was the joke.
transfer fully over to Ruxiva to continue to be in business because as we realize who we really are, you realize you don't need Botox. You start loving yourself.
Yeah.
And people that love themselves, that truly love themselves, love every version of themselves.
You know
They
what's funny?
just,
I got my hair colored the other day, and I'm
yeah,
sitting there spending the money, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Who
yeah,
am I doing this for?
yeah.
Because I did stop with the Botox. Hey, and disclaimer, no judgment. Get your hair dyed, get your Botox done, get your filler. We don't care. But we also invite you to learn out, like, ask yourself why, at least,
Well, if something makes you happy,
Absolutely.
then you should do it,
Yeah,
okay? And as long as it's not hurting you or hurting anyone else, that's fine.
that's the
But the
bottom line.
fact of the matter is, the more you get to know yourself, and certainly the older you get. See, I have the benefit of having a few more years under my belt too. And
Hmm.
at some point, it doesn't matter what you do.
Right.
It really doesn't matter what you do. You're just what you are. And even if you look a certain way, your body is literally just falling apart.
So it is what it
It
is.
is what it is. And that is why death is the ultimate, basically, it's the ultimate balancer.
Mm.
It's the ultimate, nobody gets away.
Anyway, so that would just be ironic and perfect. I think that's something they all should offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay,
Yeah, and
so
I
what
do. I have those types of clinics.
well, because it's a wellness clinic,
I have
right?
biohacker places. I have gyms. I have elite athletic places that train elite athletes because one of the things we're learning is that if you train these parts of the brain, it allows for faster decision making and quicker recovery times and quicker response times
Mm.
because we're creating what we call hyper neuroplasticity. So just like when you take mushrooms and they do a brain scan of your brain, they could see like all the connections that are being made
Right.
that weren't there. We're doing the same thing.
And there's certain psychedelics that theoretically create more gray matter or grow your gray matter. I mean, so
Yeah.
wouldn't that be an amazing study if you can find that you
Well,
actually
we have those studies, and there's actually been a study done with certain pulses of light that can create the environment where the ventricles in our brain open and allow cerebrospinal fluid to flow up into the brain and clean the brain out, which we have been learning is a tremendous aid in people that are having cognitive difficulties, because one of the things they've discovered recently is that dementia is a plumbing problem. The brain
mm,
stops cleaning itself.
that's world changing.
Yeah,
Wow. We got to keep that away from big pharma, huh?
yeah.
Well, thank you for all of this wealth of knowledge because I'm going to figure out a way to get one in Savannah. And so, to all my Savannah listeners, stay tuned because we're going to have this experience somehow. And at minimum, maybe I can find a show or something to get you to come down and visit us.
All right, yeah. Any consciousness or wellness or biohacking or mind body spirit, yoga festivals, anything like that, you're not too far away that I can't get there. So
East Coast, it's
yeah,
easy enough. Well,
yeah.
I guess before we go, is there anything about your business and the future of roXiva that you want to make sure everybody knows about, or did we get it all covered?
This was really great. I'm going to be in London at the Health Optimization Summit in September. And then in October, I'll be presenting at Professionals Week at the Monroe Institute.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and we're going to be, introducing roXiva to all the professionals that work with clients. And then in November, I'll be in Florida at Eudaimonia, which is a big show in Palm Beach that is run by Andrew Huberman and a bunch of other people that are really up there. And then in December, I'll be in Las Vegas at A4M, which is the American Association for Anti-Aging Medicine show.
Well, there you go. That's
Yeah,
kinda what we're talking about, those kind of places. That's a
yeah,
great in. Okay, well, those are I'm about to go look up this Florida show with
yeah,
Andrew Huberman. How cool is that? You're
yeah,
gonna have a blast there.
yeah, yeah.
And London. I wanna go. All right, well, excellent. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kelly. It's been great fun.
Okay, before we wrap up, I promised you some tips and tricks for creating similar sober psychedelic experiences right from your home. No fancy gear required. First up, there's an app that is called Luminate that uses your phone's flashlight to create a kind of light journey. It's similar to the roXiva, and then it flashes that light, and so it uses your brain waves to create the experience within you from the external stimulus. And it's just wild how effective it can be just right from your phone. But this app, they have a few free journeys if you want to test it out. And it's got a monthly subscription, and I think you can, of course, get it yearly. But the few ones I've done have been really pretty amazing for just to be in your house and use your phone flashlight. Like anything with the light flicker we've talked about, there are some disclaimers. And one thing Luminate has right there on the app, it's a great list that helps you figure out if it's safe for you. So in general, it's just not recommended if you're pregnant or you have photosensitive epilepsy or if you're on certain medications. And again, they have that list. But remember, you're in the driver's seat and you can stop anytime if it feels like it's too much. So another way to access these altered states is through holotropic breathing, and we have a whole episode on that if you want to learn more, but there's plenty of YouTube videos on it. I do like Breathe with Sandy on YouTube. He has a variety of different breath work, so it's not all holotropic, but that's the keyword you want to look up. And it's like a quick inhale through your stomach and then your chest and then an exhale. So that's kind of what you're looking for. It's going to be somebody that's demonstrating like a sound. And then it's almost like hyperventilating, but it gets the job done. I can tell you that. So, again, breath work can be really activating. Listen to your body, take responsibility for your own experience. But on the gentler side, I just love my Bluetooth sleep mask for just any kind of meditations or sound journeys that you can find that resonate with you. It blocks out the light and it plays like a super immersive audio experience that kind of has you cocooned and makes it easier to drop in. And often I just like to go to sleep with one. But don't overlook these free, timeless options either. Staring at the campfire, lying under a tree with sunlight flickering through the leaves, chanting, drumming, or just simply taking yourself into a deep rhythmic breath. These are just the original technologies, and they work just as well now as they did thousands of years ago. So, bottom line though, whether it's an app, a breath practice, or just watching the stars, the point isn't the tool. The point is what it shows you about yourself. You already have everything you need inside of you, and these are just different doorways into remembering it. But as always, check the show notes. I'll leave all these links to the things I've mentioned and info with Raff and roXiva, so you can dive into that more if you're interested. His light does run around $5,000, but it's really mainly get in touch with your practitioners, your chiropractors, your wellness centers, and petition them to get in touch with roXiva to get a light. And then that would be the best pathway, I think. But thanks again for Raff for coming on and teaching us all about this amazing technology and just that this is even possible. That's it for this episode of That Spiritual Girl Next Door. Don't forget to show us some love and play the game with the algorithm by rating the show, hitting that like button, and subscribing. Maybe even send this episode to your friend who won't shut up about their last breathwork journey or sound bath. You know the one. Thanks for hanging out with me. Until next time.